Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to make a springtime card with Lost Shadow Distress ink and Gilding Flakes. Hope you enjoy! So I started with a piece of paper that's 5 3/4 inches squared, and using my domed foam blending tools, I blended some Lost Shadow Distress ink on the bottom third of the card. And I left a big white border around the outside and concentrated the ink towards the middle areas. Once I was happy with that, I added some spun sugar distress ink and blended that in the middle area of the card, again leaving that white border around the outside. So I've tried blending Lost Shadow Distress ink with the other colors, and it tends to work better with the colors that are softer. So then I added some tumbled glass distress ink at the top of the card. And because these three colors are all quite soft and they go on lightly, they tended to work really well together. And the pastel colors really remind me of spring. And then I just blended these inks together until I was happy with my background. Next, I put some of the Lost Shadow Distress ink on the non-stick area of my media mat and sprayed it with water. And then I smushed the ink around the outside of my background, the area that I had left white. Then I used my heat tool to dry this and repeated this several times. So I was aiming to add color to all those areas around the outside of the card. And one thing to keep in mind that when you add the Lost Shadow, it does lighten up a lot more once you've dried it with your heat tool. As you can see here, now that it's completely dry. So then I used the Tree of Courage from Lavinia Stamps, and I stamped this with the Versafine Clair Morning Mist, and I put this towards the left-hand side of the card. And then using the same ink color, I stamped the Gate and Fence stamps. This is made up of 3 different stamps. So there's this piece here, which is one side of the fence, and you can just line it up to create a long fence. And then I did a few of those and then added the gate piece. And then on the other side of the gate, I added the second fence piece, which is facing the other way. Next, I used one of my favorite little leaf stamps, which is one of the stamps in the Fairy Door set. And I stamped this with some glamorous ink. And I used second generation stamping so that it wouldn't be too bright for this pastel colored scene. And I used this stamp to build up the tree and make it look like a nice full springtime tree. And the glamorous ink really matched well with the spun sugar distress ink. Similarly, I used a warm breeze and added some blue leaves, which went really well with that tumbled glass distress ink, so that the tree is made up of the glamorous and the warm breeze colored leaves. So I kept repeating this until I thought that the tree had enough leaves on it. Now the Tree of Courage does come with its own leaf that you could always use instead, but I quite like this little leaf from the Fairy Door set because I think it looks perfect for spring. So once I'm happy with my tree, I'm going to stamp 2 of the birds from the Bird Collection stamp set. This actually comes with 4 birds, and these 2 are the smaller ones. So I'll stamp one at the bottom left of the fence there, and the other one just left of the gate. And then using the Believe in Magic stamp, I'm going to add some second generation prints of it around the outside, just over those areas where we added that Lost Shadow Distress ink. And I think that really helps to make the background of this scene a bit more interesting. And I used the Monarch color for this, and I'm going to use the same color to stamp this sentiment right under the tree there in the focal point. And it says, "Those who don't believe in magic will never find it." I decided to use this card as a thank you card, but it could always be an all occasion card as well. Next, I'm going to use that same Warm Breeze Distress ink and blend it around the outside of the card, focusing on the left-hand side at the top and the right-hand side at the bottom. And then similarly, I'm going to use the Glamorous and focus more on the corners so that there's a little bit of blue that stretches beyond the Glamorous. It makes this really nice pinky purple area. And then I'll add the pink where there's no color. If you wanted this to be more dramatic, you could always bring in some of that Monarch ink as well that we used for the sentiment, but I quite like the Warm Breeze and the Glamorous together. So I'm just going to add some details on those two birds and give them some eyes. And then I'll use some double-sided tape along the bottom of the card. And this is where I'm going to add that Gilding flakes. So I'm just cutting it so that it's the exact length of the card front. And I'm just going to add a bit more of that Warm Breeze and Glamorous ink so that we have a ground underneath the scene there. Now just be careful when you add your double-sided tape that your ink is completely dry, otherwise it might not stick properly. Now behind this is going to be a piece of paper that's 6 by 6 inches, and I'm going to add some double-sided tape to each of the 4 sides, and then I will remove these so that the double-sided tape is showing. Then I'm going to apply some silver gilding flakes, and I'm just going to pat them on the areas where there's that adhesive, the double-sided tape, and then lightly tap it off and use a paintbrush to wipe off any excess. And to make less of a mess, I'm just using a piece of paper to hold everything on, and then I can put it back into the container afterwards. So here's the large 6 by 6 inch paper, and I'm just rubbing this along the double-sided tape area so it sticks easily where there's adhesive, and then tapping it off and using that paintbrush to wipe off any excess. I haven't used gilding flakes in a while, but after using these, I think I will use them more often. It's a great way to add sparkle and shine to a card, and this particular color works so well with that Lost Shadow Distress ink. So I'm going to add this background to a 6 by 6 inch card base. And then using double-sided tape, I'm going to put my card front onto this background. I left the inside of this card blank, but you could always add a sentiment inside if you prefer. I just love the sparkle from those gilding flakes. Just gorgeous. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video inspiring. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!